you, like all of us, that change can happen. And that is why through our passion, we go out there, we work on ships for months at a time, protecting marine species all around the world. And so yes, we run different campaigns. Some of them are to protect sharks, some of them are to stop illegal fishing, some others are more to protect, for example, wild salmon, and some other research collaborations as well. But today, what I'm going to be focusing, oh, sorry, and just for you to know, we have right now 5 different ships operating in different campaigns. But the star of the show today is Operation Milagro, our Vaquita defense campaign. What we're doing with Operation Milagro is we are working in the upper Gulf of California, which is like on this image that you're watching right now. This area, like the top of the Gulf, is the delta of the Rio Colorado. This area is like a really rich marine environment. And right here, there's like species, like there's a lot of marine biodiversity. But the species that we are mostly interested in for Operation Milagro is the Vaquita. These marine mammals, they only live on this part of the planet. They have a very, very limited distribution range. But I'll introduce you to the Vaquita a bit better. Right here on this other image, you can see this little shaded square that's called the Vaquita Refuge. It's an area that was created in 2005, and it is where most of the vaquitas are believed to live. With this image, I just want to show you like how super limited their distribution is and why is it so important to protect their habitat. So here it is, our star, the Vaquita marina. So the vaquitas, they are not dolphins, they are porpoises. Porpoises are usually like smaller than dolphins, and their dorsal fin is also usually more triangular. Dolphins, if you look at them, they are going to have it like a bit more pointy like that. And so yeah, they're tiny. They are considered the smallest cetacean in the world, and they are approximately like 1.5 meters long, more or less. I don't know. Okay, yes. So on this image over here, like you can see it compared to a human, and as you can see, it's like very, very tiny. So the fact that they are this tiny is what makes them very vulnerable to getting entangled in nets. But I will talk about this in a couple of slides later. Their lifespan is around 20 years, more or less, and they weigh up to 50 kilos, which again is like very, very little. So they are really small. And as I was explaining you, they are like endemic to the upper Gulf of California. That means that there's nowhere else in the planet where these animals can be found. So they are very small, as I was saying, and they are also like really, really beautiful. As you can see, they have like this very distinct black patch around their eyes that you can see, which makes them like look like this nice, almost like if they were a cartoon. And they have this big, well, big compared to their size, it's big, triangular dorsal fin that's very, very characteristic to them. On this image down here, unfortunately, you can see how one of them it's been tangled in illegal gill nets, and also the one down here, unfortunately, it's like a really young individual. As you can see, it still has like these little lines. That means that it wasn't long since it came out of its mother's womb, and it was another victim of entanglement. Here we go. Behavior. So they are really, really hard to see, these animals. Barely. In fact, myself, I've never seen a vaquita yet, and a lot of the crew that works in Operation Milagro hasn't been able to see none either. But they are like super shy, and they are very small. So like when they come out to the surface, they only come to breathe, and they do it in a very, very short amount of time. And they usually are not either splashing or jumping like we're used to see dolphins do. And they also tend to avoid boats a lot, which makes any type of task of observation, of trying to quantify them or monitoring, it makes it like very, very difficult. In fact, they use high-frequency echolocation clicks to locate their prey and also to navigate. This area, it's like super murky water, so it's like very, very difficult to see also. And thanks that they use these echolocation clicks to be able to find their food, we are able to monitor them. Well, we work with a lot of scientists, which are like some of the best marine mammal scientists in the world, that they've set up an acoustic monitoring program, which means that it is through recording these clicks that vaquita make that they are able to count how many of them are left. And that's how we can monitor the population. Their reproduction, they also like get kind of sexual mature up to 3 and 6 years of age. That means that, you know, they have to wait that long to be able to reproduce. And they have a very long gestation period, a bit over a human gestation period we have. So it's like 10 to 11 months. And they usually only have one calf at a time. And then they have to wait around 1 to 2 years to reproduce again. It is believed that they usually mate on the spring, and then they would have their calves 1 year later, so on the next spring. That's why also this time of the year, unfortunately around March, it also overlaps with the peak of the illegal fishing season. So it's very unfortunate that the peak of illegal fishing season overlaps with, you know, when most of the birds are occurring. So the main issue with this population is that it's the most critically endangered marine mammal in the world. And when we're saying this, we really mean it. I mean, right now, the last monitoring, it indicates that there's only 30 vaquitas left or less. And that last effort was done in 2017. So the latest numbers, we still do not have them, but we believe to be around that number or a bit less. Their decline was like very, very abrupt. In 1993, there were 767 individuals. And that monitoring was done when we realized that they were really starting to decline. And we can see how in only like these 12 years, there's been like a 92% decline of the population. They're like, it's a really, really steep decline. And what is their main danger? Well, unfortunately, as I was mentioning, it is their entanglement in illegal gill nets. So bycatch, by fishing gear, it's considered to be one of the main dangers for like coastal marine mammal populations like all over the world. But on the case of the vaquita, it's not only entanglement due to just like fishing gear, but it's specifically related to the illegal trade of the totoaba bass. What happens with this is that the amount of fishing gear that is placed in this very small area where they live is huge. It's like a huge amount of nets that are put to be able to fish these totoaba bass that I'm going to tell you the story in a second. So right now on this picture that you're seeing on the bottom, I'm comparing like the sizes of the vaquita and of this fish. This fish is also critically endangered and it's like really big. It measures up to 2 meters as well. But compared to the vaquita, so they are like approximately the same size. That means that the same nets that are set to capture totoaba bass can also capture the vaquita because they are like of very, very similar sizes. The main issue is that poachers, illegal fishermen, are fishing this fish only to get their swim bladder. So the swim bladder is an organ, the one on this picture, that serves the fishes to control their buoyancy. So this specific item is very, very valuable in the illegal market in China, and it's very precious for like different reasons, such as if they believe that it may have aphrodisiac properties, like anti-cancerous properties, and like different types of things that makes it like very, very valuable. And it also makes it a material that they use to speculate, to actually like buy a lot of them and then sell them like at even higher prices. But this fish is protected. That means that to fish it, it's completely illegal as well. So this is considered wildlife illegal trading. Here we can see that they're like highly demanded in China. The way they do it is like they fish this fish, they open them, they remove this bladder and they dry it up. Then they sell these bladders to China where they are like sell for like super high prices. Here we can see how it's like $71,000 of worth, just like 1 kilogram of totoaba swim bladder in an investigation done around 2015. As I was saying, it's believed to have like curative properties, and this is pretty much like the main reason why these nets are set and why the vaquita is being driven to extinction. Here, let's see if I can load this whole. Sorry. And one more. Here we are. So here I just wanted to show you a little bit how the evolution and the decline of the two species have been really related. So the vaquitas were first spotted in 1950, and since then, as I was saying, in 2017, the last estimate is saying that there's like less than 30 individuals left. So when totoaba illegal fishing also like peaked around like the 90s, around the 50s, they decided to put a complete ban on totoaba fishing because they were realizing as well that this species also was going extinct. In 1975, they also declared the totoaba that was like threatened under the CITES, and they also decided to put a permanent ban on its fishing. This did not stop the illegal fishing because, as I was showing you, it's very, very lucrative and it does give a lot of money to the poachers, so they don't really want to stop this activity. In 1996, it was actually listed as critically endangered, and together with the Vaquita, which on the same year it was also listed, upgraded to critically endangered. So we can see how like the evolution of these two species have been like very parallel, as one is completely affected by the decline of the other. So the last population assessments of the totoaba also like say that it is critically endangered, but they were done like a long time ago, and currently like different efforts are being made to produce a new assessment of the population because it's believed that they have recovered since the last one, that they may have actually a different status. Sorry, before passing on to the next one, in 2005, when they were realizing that it was these illegal gill nets that were threatening the Vaquita and that it was like driving them to extinction, is when they decided to create this Vaquita refuge in 2005, which means that all on this area, on like the dark gray shaded area, sorry, I wish I had a pointer in my hand to be able to right now show you this area, but I'm assuming like you're seeing it where it says Vaquita Refuge, and right there, like any type of gillnet fishing, it's completely banned to specifically to be able to protect these vaquitas. The problem with these issues is that this area is sometimes like not correctly enforced. So even if all these these laws are in place, and even if all these provisions for fishing are in place, if they are not being properly enforced, poaching does not stop. And that is why Operation Milagro exists. And basically, since 2015, Sea Shepherd started to investigate the area because we knew that the vaquita was going extinct and we wanted to do something about it. Since that first trip in 2015, and after encountering a humpback whale that was tangled in one of the illegal nets in the area, and we were able to actually release it and save it, we had oh, thank you for the tip of selecting. There we go, perfect. So now if I have to show you things, like I can actually point you at them. Perfect. Thank you so much for the tip. So as I was saying, Operation Milagro started actively retrieving and removing illegal nets from the water in December 2015, after successfully releasing a humpback whale that was entangled and that was able to survive. So since then, we established a partnership with the Mexican government and the Mexican authorities to be able to be patrolling all the Vaquita refuge and to be able to be pulling out all the illegal nets. There's also collaborations with other organizations, and also especially with renowned Vaquita scientists who are advising us in like to where are the main and most critical areas for the vaquita, so we can focus all our efforts specifically on those areas to increase their chances of survival as much as possible. And of course, Operation Milagro means miracle in Spanish, because we believe that a miracle is needed to be able to save the vaquita from extinction. So what is the shepherd actually doing to protect the vaquita? What we're mainly doing is patrolling the whole area in search of illegal activities to do two things. First, to be able to report all these illegal activities to the authorities, so they are able to take any steps necessary to protect the area, and also through monitoring and patrolling this area, we are also discovering where the poachers are setting their nets, and then we're able to go and remove them from the water so that no animals get entangled. This has been a really big mission. Right now we are on our 5th Operation Milagro, and during this time more than 214 crew from like different nationalities have been crewing on 5 different ships that have been present on the upper Gulf of California. And right now, on this last Operation Milagro 5, we've been patrolling the refuge since September 2018. for the search of illegal nets and like to trying to make the vaquita habitat a safer place. And how do we actually do it? So what we do is like we're sailing all over the area and trying to find these nets. And the most effective way of doing so, it's like to use our radar. So each ship is equipped with this type of technology. And what we do is during the night, we kind of like sit close to the areas where we know that the poachers are gonna come out and set up their nets. And we pretty much record their activities over the radar, so we kind of know where they are. Then through all these years of Operation Milagro, we've developed really, really good skills and a really good understanding on what the poaching behavior is. So we are able to actually detect when they're setting a net, where are they putting it? I mean, like in what direction are they setting it? And then we're able to record those coordinates to be able to go afterwards and remove those nets from the water. Also, our presence has been usually a big deterrent for poaching activities. So when we appear usually on the areas where the illegal fishermen are setting up their nets, they usually go away also not being able to operate. Another really important tool that we've developed is this over here. This is an underwater sonar. And we've been able to learn how to identify how those nets look underwater. So with this type of technology, we're able to be like sailing all over the refuge, and then when we go over these specific images that like look a little bit like this, like a balloon with a string down here, we know that there's a net. And then we set up, we follow the deck crew, and everybody gets ready to be able to pull up these nets. So one of the techniques could be like exactly that, just like patrol the whole area, look with the sonar where these nets are, and then like straight away retrieve them. And if we are operating at night, we would be like observing all the illegal activities and then like writing down all the coordinates to be able to go later on and retrieve those nets. Here we are. Another technique that we use to find these nets is to troll this device behind the ship. So this over here, we call it a ray, and it's pretty much just like a piece of metal that is shaped very specifically to be able to glide at a specific depth underwater, and it has this hook over here. So what happens when we are dragging this device behind the ship is that if we encounter any nets, this hook over here is gonna lock onto the net, and then we have it set it up with a really good system in a way that then we have a buoy system, a floating buoy system that's gonna like pop off the ship when this hook gets tangled into a net, and it's gonna stay with the net floating. This way we can then like go back and start retrieving this net. So we've developed a set of tools that have become like super important and like super necessary to be able to find these nets and retrieve them. So on these pictures, this is actually when we are removing the illegal fishing gear. So some of those nets, more or less, they look like this. Okay, so here I put like these two crosses because this is an illustration that I found of a gill net. But actually, these illegal gill nets, they have a particularity. And it is that, of course, because they are illegal and the poachers don't want to be caught with these nets, they don't have these floating buoys in the surface. And for that reason, they are invisible from the surface, and that's why we have to use all the technology that I just explained to you to find them, because we cannot just like be sailing and seeing them on top of the water. So this over here, it's more or less their setup. So they would have this wall of net that could be sustained vertically by a line of floats that could be all the way here. And then, you know, it could be sitting in the bottom through also a chain of weights that could be part pretty much of like the whole bottom of the net. Then it would have two big anchors, one on each side of the net, that allows them here to be in place. Then the poachers, what they do is they write down the coordinates where the nets are, and then they left them there sometimes for a day, sometimes for two, sometimes longer. The thing is that they don't want to leave them too long, because a totoaba bladder is way more precious when it's fresh and when it's just caught. So if they leave them too many days, that means, you know, that the totoabas that they may find, they are not as fresh. So they're usually set from a few hours to 1 or 2 days. And usually, as you can imagine, like these nets sometimes are up to 400 meters long. That's a very long wall of net, and so many different species of animals can get caught on it, not only vaquitas. It's a really complicated operation, but as I was saying, after 5 years and like very, very dedicated crew, and with a lot of knowledge passed on through these different years of operations, we've been able to master a really good system that allows us to be very, very efficient pulling up nets, and not only that, but also freeing up all the animals that may be entangled on those same nets. Here, so for you to have an idea of how big this operation is, on this graphic over here, it's compiled all the information from the total number of illegal fishing gear that was recovered from the upper Gulf of California. This data is from Operation Milagro 3 and 4, because it's like when our more reliable data, and like when we develop like the best system to collect all the net numbers and all the activities that we were undertaking. But more or less here, I wanted to show you how you can observe this goes from November to May, okay? But you can see how when the months where we are finding more nets, it's around from like January up until the end of April, okay? With a big concentration in March, in April. And this has a very specific reason. And these are the months where the totoaba comes to the upper Gulf of California to spawn. And that is when most of the poachers take the opportunity to come and set up those nets, because they know that this is the time of the year that they're going to find more totoaba, and of course that they are going to be able to earn more money with it. So specifically during these months are like the high risk months for the vaquita, and it's where we've been concentrating most of our efforts. But because of the situation and being less than 30 animals left, that's when we decided this year to start our efforts in September, even if we know it was low season for illegal fishing, sorry, because we believe that the situation is so critical that it's just like too important, and we have to be there, you know, as much time as we can to be able to retrieve as many nets as we can and to make their home as safe as possible. So during Operation Milagro 3 and 4, we collected a total of 618 pieces of illegal fishing gear. Okay, but also to give you a more complete number that compiles all our Operations Milagro, I'm going to tell you that we've removed 887 illegal nets from the vaquita habitat to date. And that is 887 opportunities for not only vaquitas, but sharks, turtles, other marine mammals to get tangled and die. So it is very important that this work is undertaken, and it's really making a difference on the survival, not only of the vaquita, but of all the species that inhabit the upper Gulf of California. Here as well is for you to have an idea. This is the area of the vaquita refuge, this polygon that I've marked in here. And this is active totoaba nets that we found since we started operations in 2016. As you can see, like there is a huge amount, and most of them overlap over here with the area where the vaquitas are believed to inhabit. Also, based in acoustic monitoring observations, we believe that vaquitas, even if this is their whole vaquita refuge, they are mostly concentrated around this area over here. So unfortunately, they are also concentrated where the overlap with totoaba nets is bigger. So it's very important that these nets, first, that these nets are not even placed in the water, and for that we need proper enforcement and monitoring of illegal activities, and then that there's operations in place to be able to remove them before any animals get tangled. As I was mentioning, unfortunately, there are many species of animals that get tangled on these gill nets that are not only vaquitas and totoabas. On this picture, for example, we are seeing a seabird. Like many seabirds are found sometimes on the net. These are rays. So rays are one of the main animals that we find on the nets. And we are lucky enough to be able to find most of them, or at least a lot of them, alive. And our crew have been specifically trained to be able to remove all nets around them and to be able to increase their chances of survival by releasing them from the net and returning them to the water. Some of them are in really good condition, and we believe 100% that they make it, and that is thanks to the fact that we found that they are able to survive. Some other ones appear to be very damaged by the nets. They usually have like big scars or big cuts made while they were trying to make themselves like escape from the nets. And some other ones, unfortunately, we find them dead. But any animal we find alive, we are able to release them and return them to the ocean. So that is a very important part of the mission. Over here, we also unfortunately have a shark, and there are many different species of shark that appear tangled on the nets. This one over here is a hammerhead shark, and there are mainly two species of hammerhead sharks in the upper Gulf of California, but one of them, the scalloped hammerhead shark, is endangered, and it is a species that we also find very commonly tangled on the nets. And not only that, but like we actually find like very small size individuals, so like more towards like juvenile individuals. So that is another big impact on of the nets in the different populations that inhabit the upper Gulf of California. So here as well, unfortunately, we have a picture of like two bottlenose dolphins that were also, sorry, I don't actually recognize what specific species of dolphin it is, but two dolphins that were also like found completely dead and entangled in what is clearly an illegal totoaba net. And this has happened like in several locations. We had like several sea lions also like found together entangled on the same net. And it just shows like how big of an impact they have in many different species on the upper Gulf, even if our focus is currently on the Vaquita. Here is the humpback whale that we were actually able to free and save from the nets, and she's actually the protagonist and the reason why the whole net retrieval program started, since after this moment we were able to set a collaboration and an agreement with the Mexican government to patrol this water and to retrieve any illegal nets. So this is an example of like we've found like up to 6,826 different animals trapped and tangled on this net. And many of them were raised. There were also like a big amount of sharks, also like marine mammals, seabirds, and turtles were found on those nets. But the good news is that a lot of the time we're also able to save them. As I was saying before, for the rays, for example, 659 of the 873 rays that we found were able to be saved. So that's a really big amount, and pretty much like making the calculations, around 33% of all the animals that we find, we are able to save. And it is thanks to be able to find these nets and release them that we are making a difference on these individuals. So another big part of our operation is that these nets, when they come out of the water, we don't just like put them in bags and like throw them in the rubbish, but they go through like a very long process. To start with, we have like dedicated scientists on board each ship that's gonna take all the information from this net. So we're gonna take its measurements. We're gonna kind of like observe what materials are they made of, what's the size of the mesh, what type of net it is, and then we put together all this information to be able to inform different scientists that we work with, and also to be able to inform better our own operations. Then these nets are also processed and handled to recycling facilities to make like different materials and like different products out of them. We also like undertake a process of destroying them to make sure that nobody is able to use them again. Also, it's very important that like we, besides all the data that we collect on the net material, net length, and everything, we also collect a lot of data on the animals that we find on these nets. So what species are they? What is their state, or like how many of them were alive, how many of them were dead? And then again, we share this information with different scientists that we are working with, and we are able to kind of show what is the broader impact of these nets, not only on vaquitas, but like in the entire marine ecosystem of the Gulf of California. So at this point, I don't know if I gave you like too much information and now you're discouraged on like how horrible these nets are. But the good news is that even if there's only less than 30 vaquitas left and we are really, really running against the clock to try to save them from extinction, it is very important that we talk about this issue. It's very important that we let people know what's happening on the upper Gulf of California. And there's no better way than you telling all your friends, all your family, like everybody you know about this issue, to point them to the right sources of information. Tell your family, like everybody you know about this issue, to point them to the right sources of information and to then let the proper authorities know that you care about the vaquita. And I'll show you next what can you do about that specifically. But it is very important that we know that this conservation issue is going on to also be able to apply all this knowledge to other situations on the planet that may be similar to the one that the vaquita is suffering right now in the future, and we have to avoid these type of situations. We need to protect vaquita from extinction, and we need to stop this situation from happening again. You are also welcome to volunteer with us in any of our ships. Like if you feel this is your passion and that you're passionate about marine conservation and that you want to do something active about it, please like enter to our website and like look for the information on crewing, on participating on ships. And of course, like as I was telling you, we're a non-profit organization, so everything we do, we're able to do it thanks to the donations of individuals that are like interested in marine conservation and then support all our missions. And so another very important step right now. So I wanted to keep this last slide to give you, and these last few minutes, I still have a bit of time, to first, like it is very important that at this moment we let the government of Mexico know that we all care about the vaquita and that we don't want to live in a world without vaquitas. And you have the chance of writing letters about how you think the vaquita is important for the environment and for yourself, writing letters directly to the Minister of Environment Secretary, which is Josefa Gonzalez, and this is their address. Like I don't know if you're able to write it down or you want to take a picture of it or anything like that, but feel free to send any letters, any drawings, any thoughts that you may have that may help save the vaquita right now, because we need all the attention as possible on the upper Gulf of California to ensure that there is proper enforcement, that like proper laws are in place to make sure that the vaquita is safe. And well, I'm not done yet, but there was like a few more things that I wanted to talk to you about, but I didn't really need many more slides about it. But I wanted to kind of explain to you right now what is the situation, because we've been able to be pulling up many nets over this past Operation Milagro campaign. But of course, as you can imagine, poachers and illegal fishermen doesn't just like let us pull the nets and don't do anything about it, right? So they have become like increasingly more violent over the years, and that is why since Operation Milagro 4 last year, we count with the collaboration of the Mexican Navy on board and of the Federal Police on board. And what they've been doing is like offering us protection in front of any type of attacks that we may suffer from the poachers and from the illegal fishermen. But what is happening lately is that the violence has increased even more. And right now we are at a point that in January, maybe some of you have heard about the news, otherwise I invite you to enter to our website and you will be able to read and see all the information about it, that we've suffered 2 intense attacks by the poachers where they've been throwing not only rocks that have actually like broken our windows and that have damaged some of our equipment, but also they've been like throwing cocktail molotovs at us. And these attacks have been like increasingly in numbers. So the first attack in January and the beginning of January was of up to 25 pangas. Excuse me, pangas are the boats that the illegal fishermen use to go out. So pretty much are the way they call their own small boats. And this last attack, it was up to 50 pangas that like participated. And that is creating a lot of violence on the upper Gulf of California, that it is interfering with our activities, and we need all support that we can get to make sure to make sure that we can continue with our illegal net retrieval operations, because right now every single day counts for the survival of the vaquita, and we need to be out there as much as we can, pulling as many nets as we can to ensure that they can survive extinction. At this very moment, we have 2 more ships ready to join the Farley Mowat, the one ship that we have right now in the upper Gulf of California. That means that operations are going to be doubled, with at least 2 ships at a time, and in the place of the Vaquita refuge, to be able to be pulling up nets. That also means that we are going to be safer. But again, we need all your support to make sure all this happens, because the situation right now, it's very difficult for us, but especially it is for the Vaquita. But what we know for sure is that we're not going to give up, and that we're going to do our best to be able to keep pulling up nets and making their home a safer place, because nobody wants to live in a world without Vaquitas. And well, I think that right now, in fact, I don't actually really like talking this much. I'm way more used to be able to take on questions and to take on a lot of interaction. So please, any questions that you may have, if you want to ask them, go ahead. And I'm sure that while I answer some questions, I'm going to remember things that I haven't told you yet. And please go ahead, and I will be super happy to answer any of them. Also, while you are thinking your questions, it's also very important for us to point out that we are working against illegal fishing and against poachers. We actually support legal fishermen that are that are around the area, and that are also suffering a lot from all these illegal fishing and all this situation of instability that's happening in the area. And actually, there's some of them that are participating in different type of works, like retrieving illegal fishing gear that it's been left out after the active season. So, for example, when the poachers go and fish for totoaba and put out all those nets, as I was showing you on the graphic before, they more or less leave towards the end of May or so. And then during the rest of the month, there is a lot of fishing gear that's been left behind, that is ghost fishing gear, that is just like kind of drifting around and being left on the bottom. That's very dangerous for marine animals as well. And there are different programs where like legal fishermen are collaborating to be able to retrieve this gear from the water, for example. Oh, here's a question. Do vaquitas travel in family groups? So they usually go from 1 to 3 individuals. So that's more or less like the group size that they travel to. So very small. More questions? Writing. Sorry. Hey, I don't know if I talk too much and then I show you and talked about everything, and now everybody has everything super clear. Okay. When they're actively fishing, how long are the nets kept out? So they usually go from a range of like a few hours up to 1 day or 2 days, because they actually want the totoaba fish to be pretty fresh. Because the fresher the fish is, the more money they can get for their swim bladders. So they usually are interested in leaving the gill nets in place for like not too long, so they can get, you know, the fish as fresh as they can. In fact, sometimes we do find gill nets that have been left behind for some reason. Sometimes it's because maybe they were caught with them and then they wanted to abandon them and stuff like that. And then when you pull them out and you find all the animals, it's really, really bad, because you're not only finding like a lot of different species that aren't supposed to be there, but also, for example, the totoaba animals that you find, they're like very rotten and very decomposed. So we also believe that sometimes they just like have to leave them behind. There is no fishing in those areas, or is it not net fishing? Sorry, what do you mean in those areas? Outside of the Vaquita refuge, or? because illegal fishing kind of like happens on the whole area, but nets are placed specifically on the area of the map that I was showing you, not just but because the totoabas, when they are migrating up to the northern part of the Gulf to be able to spawn, that's the route that they use. So that's why they know that if they put the nets there, is where they're gonna have higher chances of finding totoabas than like if they place them anywhere else. But unfortunately, that also overlaps with that area, with more or less the areas that Vaquita likes the most. Another question, are nets illegal everywhere? So this is a really good question. They are illegal in the Vaquita refuge just because it's the area where like there's the highest incidence of Vaquita encounters or of Vaquita overlapping with fishing gear. Then the Mexican government in 2015 put another rule in place that like set up a bit of a bigger area on the upper Gulf where like no gill nets were able to be used, and that lasted. But right now, with the transition of the government, like that area, it's still like not completely open to fishing. But this ban on gill nets is like not still in place, even though the licenses haven't been being handed out. But this area used to exist to protect a bigger area than only the Vaquita refuge. But right now, the only strict area where nets are completely illegal, it is the refuge. Another question, is climate change changes the habitat, or is there too little information on what it used to be like to compare? Another really good question. So the problem that this area has is that it's changed a lot over time, because we used to have the Colorado River, right, that was inputting a lot of sediments and a lot of water from the river that was coming into this whole area, and that helped create these like really special conditions that made this zone like very, very like a hotspot for that biodiversity, right? But with the different dams that were created like along its course, it has stopped the flow from the river of coming in, right? And this has made some changes on the ecosystem. So that's been like one of the most impactful things for the area. In terms of climate change, I am not sure what specific studies have been done on this area, but what I can say is that even though if this changes, and the fact that this area has changed quite a lot over the past years due to this stop of the flow of the river, like this, for example, may have impact like in other species, but for the Vaquita, unfortunately, through studying all the individuals that have been found dead on the beaches or like floating around or on nets, the necropsies, which a necropsy is what you do to a marine mammal after it's been found dead, so to know the cause of the death, we know that it is because of illegal gill nets that they were dead. So they were not starving, or they did not have any other type of infection or sickness. So the fact that they had, their full stomachs of like their normal diet, that it seems to be a perfect availability of prey, we know that their main concern right now is gill nets, and it is not related to any type of other environmental changes. Sorry, that was a long answer. Other questions? They're very interesting. We have a few minutes. Well, if everybody is happy and there's no more questions, then I would like to show you this short video that explains a little bit what are like sometimes, and it will give you a better idea of what the operations are. So if there's no more questions, sometimes, and it will give you a better idea of what the operations are. So if there's no more questions, I will be happy to show you the video. And of course, not sure there are any more questions. Okay, great. So then if you want to go ahead, then I'm going to try to figure out if I can play the video from here. Okay, and if this is like a 4-minute long video, so I think I'm going to reach towards the end of the session. But if you have any extra questions right after, please, I'll be super happy to answer them. But here is the video. I hope you like it.
Milagro means miracle. And it's because we need a miracle here in the Gulf of California that we give this name to the campaign. Since the first Operation Milagro, already 4 years ago, we have found thousands of dead animals because of the illegal gill nets set up by the poachers. But this area, called the Aquarium of the World by Jacques Cousteau, is one of the world's hotspots for marine biodiversity, and with our presence here, we have managed to release hundreds of live animals back into the water. Among the different species that we can find in this area, here are the main ones, which, unfortunately, get entangled in those nets.
Every time I'm informed that we have to retrieve a net, my first thought is, please, not animals in this net. It's so hard to see them fighting for their freedom when we are pulling the net out of the water. I cannot imagine how stressful it must be for them, from swimming free in the ocean to suddenly being trapped without a possible escape. Most of these animals are bycatch, including the Vaquita marina, since these nets are made specifically to fish totoaba or corvina. It is for this reason that we are here, to avoid the death of so many animals in such an unfair way, and of course, to save the Vaquita and the totoaba, both endemic species of the Sea of Cortez, both species that we only can find here. If we lose them, we lose part of ourselves.
More than ever, we need your support to stay in the area and carry on our work to remove illegal nets until the last one is eliminated from the water, to give the unique inhabitants, like the endangered Vaquita porpoise, the totoaba fish, and all the other species, a real chance for survival. Every day, our crews give their best to accomplish this miracle, because we just can't let a species die. Extinction is forever.
Okay, can you hear me still? Okay, California, like organizations working together with scientists, and like we are all back by back kind of like working to protect the vaquita from extinction. Like I think like organizations working together with scientists, and like we are all back by back kind of like working to protect the vaquita from extinction. Like I think through projects like the one that you and pretty much you students are putting together, like it is the future, like it is thanks to youth people caring that things are going to change, and that I hope that we, like it is the future, like it is thanks to youth people caring that things are going to change, and that I hope that we, you know, that we don't reach this point where we are like fighting for only 30 individuals left, and that we learn these lessons, and you know, that you, the future generations, like go up and like keep protecting this planet, because we really need you. We really need your passion, and we really need you caring like you're doing. So thank you so much. And any other information you want, please see shepherd.org. Like it's gonna tell you all about our campaigns, about what we do, and feel free to contact us anytime. And keep following your passion and do what you love the most. And I seriously thank you for caring about these issues. So thank you. Talk soon. It's been a pleasure.